Welcome to this tutorial, which is on how to make the Dorag skull cap pattern that I sell in my Etsy shop, and you'll find the details below in the description. And I'm firstly going to make the reversible cap, and then later on in the video I'll do the non-reversible, and again timings will be down in the video information. When you've printed off your pattern, if you're making the large or medium hat, you will have 4 sheets of paper. If you're making the small, you'll only have 3. So you print them off 100% full size, and then what you do is you cut off the right hand border on 1, 2 and 3, or only on 1 and 2 if you're making the small size. So you cut off the right hand border, and then what will happen is you overlap the pattern pieces so that they match up like so, and tape them together. Only take the areas that you're actually going to be cutting out. Once you've joined all your pattern pieces together, you can cut them out. Now, as we're making the reversible hat, we're going to be using 2 different fabrics. Now, with this piece, the top piece of the pattern, this is cut on the fold, and you cut 1 in the main fabric and you cut 1 in the contrast fabric. The crown, you cut 2 in the main fabric, 2 in the contrast fabric. The hat band, you cut 1 in the main fabric on the fold and 1 in the contrast fabric on the fold. The strap, you cut 4 of these, so you cut 2 in the main fabric and 2 in the contrast. Now, because we're doing the reversible, we don't need this facing piece, so I'm putting that aside. So cut out all your pieces in your main fabric and your contrast fabric. So we've now cut all our pattern pieces. So the crown, we have 2 in the main fabric and 2 in the reversible. The hat band, we have cut on the fold, and we have 1 in the main fabric and 1 in the reversible. And the strap, we have 2 in each colour. And then the main body of the hat, again we have 1 in each colour. Now this is the section we're going to be concentrating on for the moment. So turn your 2 sections so that they are right sides down on the table. And we have got to sew the darts here and here. So use your pattern piece to help you work out where the end of your dart should be, and then either mark with a pencil or a piece of chalk. Not very good chalk, this. On both your pattern pieces, and then sew those darts together. Once you've sewn your darts, your hats will look like this on the right side and this on the wrong side. So those are our darts sewn. Now the next pieces we need are our curved crowns, and this is where the slightly fiddly bit comes in. We are going to be sewing right sides together, this curve to this straight line. So get the right piece that you need, put it to your hat like so, pin, and then sew all the way along. Oh, that's a rubbish pin. Try not to stretch your fabric as you go, otherwise your pieces won't fit together. And you sew right up to the end join. And we're going to sew all the way around there. Then we're going to sew that side to the other side and then do exactly the same with the other hat, making sure you've got right sides together. When you sew a curve, it's best to have the curved piece uppermost. It's easier to lead the fabric through and you won't get pleats and things on the other side. Once you've sewn the sides on, you will have two hats that look sort of like this. Okay, and we need to trim these seams, so I'm going to trim those in a second. The next pieces you need are your brim and your ties. Now you'll see that this is curved. The very curved edge is the top, so I'm marking it like that. Your ties have got a slant cut as well as here, so match up your slants, put them together and sew those seams. So sew there and sew there, and do exactly the same with your contrast piece. Once you've sewn these together, trim the seams. Now take one of your hat pieces, and we've got to fold in the middle here, fold over and just mark where our middle point is on this hat. So that's our middle point there. We do the same with our curved section that we've just made. So join the two seams together and figure out where the middle section is and mark that on the top edge. Like so. There we are. Now what we're going to do is we're going to join these two together, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the reversible or your main fabric, whichever way around you're doing it. So right side to right side. Put your pins together and mark and pin those together there. And then pin all the way around your hat until you should get to where your end here meets your seam. And we're going to sew that all the way around the hat, like so, from your seam lines all the way around. Now, once you've done that, you'll do the other one to match. Once you've sewn the band around the hat, trim the seam. Now, this is what we have so far. Okay, so with that right sides round, we put the other one right side over the top of it. So both hats are right sides together. And we need to match up our centre points. So find your centre points. If you mark them with a chalk, it's handy, but I didn't, so I'm going to have to find them again. And we've got to match them up all the way around, like so. And pin them together. Now what we also need to do when we get down to the ties, these have also got to be pinned together. And match your tail sections up as well. Everything has to be matched up all the way around. So we've got to pin all the way around. Now we're going to sew this. Now we're going to sew this all the way around the ties, all the way around there, joining up everything. But we have to leave a gap to turn the hat inside out. So I'm leaving about a 3-inch gap for turning inside out. So I'm going to start stitching there, stitch all the way around, and then end up here. Once you've sewn all the way around the hat, the only bit that's now open is our gap here. Now we've got to trim all these seams, making sure you cut off your points and corners, and you'll have to clip in where you've had to do a right angle turn on the edge. So now trim all that seam. So we've clipped all the seams, gone round, clipped into the corners, and we now pull the whole hat through our gap, like so. And once it's pulled through, don't forget to pull the ties through as well. Once you've pulled it all through, make sure you give it a really good press, which I'll show you in a second. So once you've got it turned round the right way, give everything a really good press, including all these corners that you've had to clip. My black sewing doesn't look very good, but I use black thread so that I can really make sure you can see what you're doing. You'll do it nicer than me, I'm sure. I'm doing it very quickly because it's almost lunchtime. Right, okay, so you've pressed it all the way around. Now the only place we haven't got stitched up is our gap. Right. So you've got two choices. You can either slip stitch that with the needle and thread to close it up, or what looks nice is if you top stitch all the way around the edge of the hat. But that's entirely up to you. Some I've top stitched and this one I'm not. But anyway, your hat is now finished and it's reversible. Hope you enjoyed. This section of the video deals with the non-lined hat. If you want to see how to put the pattern together, you will see timings in the description below, which shows you in the video where I show how to print out and join the pattern. And now I've used the pattern to cut out the pieces for the non-lined. So I've got one facing cut on the fold, 2 crowns, 2 hat bands cut on the fold, 4 of the strap, and 1 of the main fabric on the fold. So the next thing we have to do is take our main fabric and sew our darts in it. And I'll take my chalk and just measure where the end of the dart is going, and end of the dart is there. So I'm going to sew my darts together. I'm using black thread throughout this video so that you can see exactly what to do. Once you've sewn your darts in your fabric, oh gosh, I've got thread everywhere. It will look like this. We then take our 2 crown pieces and we're going to sew those onto the sides, curve side round all the way down. And I'm going to include a bit of the original video to show you now. Pin. And then sew all the way along. Oh, that's a rubbish pin. Try not to stretch your fabric as you go, otherwise your pieces won't fit together. And you sew right up to the end join. And we're going to sew all the way around there. Then we're going to sew that side to the other side and then do exactly the same with the other hat, making sure you've got right sides together. When you sew a curve, it's best to have the curved piece uppermost. It's easier to lead the fabric through and you won't get pleats and things on the other side. Once you've sewn your sides on, trim the seams, I haven't done that yet, and turn it round to the right side so you can see it like this. Take your facing piece and make a small hem at the top edge, so all the way along there, or you can just do a zigzag, whichever you prefer. Right, I've neatened my top edge. If you've done a rolled hem, you know, you've stitched it down like that, make sure you put the right side to the right side, so that way down. And what we've got to do now is match up our pattern piece on her and stretch out those corners there. And there. Okay, like that. Now what you've got to do is sew all the way around your facing. Right, when you've done that, it will look like this, and I meant to say flatten your dart down so that you stitch up and along, and then we've got to trim that off. Ooh. And when you get to that corner, make sure you clip right into the corner, otherwise it won't turn round. I haven't turned it out properly yet, but press it all flat nicely with the iron. Then what we do is we take our curved hat band, we take one, we take 2 of the straps. Now the straps have got an angle cut on them, so match up your straps to your curve. Stitch them down at each end like so, right sides together. Do that on one hatband and then do it on the other one. Once you've got your 2 hatbands like so stitched together, and make sure you trim your seams. Now this very curved edge is the top edge, okay? Put them right sides together like so. Match them up to your seams and then pin them together. Now what is going to happen is we're going to stitch, once they're pinned together, we're going to stitch all the way along. Right, we're going to stitch all the way along the top edge joins the hat. All the way along this bottom edge, all the way around each tie at each end, but we're not going to stitch this top edge. So I'm going to go and do that now. So once you've done that, your top edge is still open, but your bottom edge and both your ties are sewn. Now we need to trim all that where we've stitched, only where we've stitched, and turn it through to the right side, like so. We do that on both sides. So I'm going to just trim, come back to you in a second. Once you've turned it out the right way, give it a really good press. And so what we have now, the only open edge is this top edge here. Right, put some pins in this to stabilise it. This has been thoroughly pressed. If you want to top stitch, you can always do this section now. And I did mean to say that really your inside seams should have been overlocked or zigzagged to finish them off, but I forgot to do that bit. So we need to find the centre of our hat here. Pin in. And the centre of this. So join up your 2 seam ends and find the centre. Oh, I've got a pin in there, hang on. Find the centre, which is there. With the right sides together, match those centres up and pin down securely all the way around. Making sure you've got it. In fact, it's a good idea to put a stay stitch across your facing there, but again, I forget these things. Right, it should all match up to your edge there. Let's take that pin out there. So we're going to stitch that all the way along together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch it on and then trim it and then overcast the seam. So I'm going to get on with that now. So once you've stitched it on and overlocked or zigzagged, your hat is basically finished. Now, it'll look better if you didn't use black thread with pink fabric, but there we are. Now, to make it look even nicer, it's a good idea to top stitch round top stitch around here, up there. It would look nice then, but that's up to you whether you top stitch or not. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Happy sewing. Thanks, folks.